Okay, we've got 2 people in the waiting room, so when Alison gets back, I will let them in.
Okay. Good job on the website, on the virtual gallery, Anna. Worked out very well, didn't it?
Okay, I'm going to let them in now.
Okay. Ah, that's Mel.
That's Mel.
I'm just going to quickly grab something for the puppy to keep her quiet.
Is Anna out in the studio, Alison?
She's in her own house.
Ah, right, okay.
Oh, God,
okay,
no.
Hi Mel. Oh, just to say your microphone is muted and your camera is turned off, and that's a conscious decision that we've made. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
Can we not have the video on?
No, I decided it was better not to.
Okay, fair enough.
So Noelle is joining. So just wait for that to happen.
What kind of photographer am I? You threw that at me at the last
Geoff. Okay. No spoilers, please.
Okay. Oh dear.
I don't know something seems to be not working, maybe with Noelle's joining. Maybe we'll just check how the Facebook is looking.
Dog, is that your stomach or your dog?
That's my puppy. Okay. We've got 5 people watching on Facebook. That's great.
Very good.
I'm not sure what's wrong with I'm not sure why Noelle isn't able to join. Well, I guess we might just have to start anyway.
I think we will,
yeah. Yes, I don't know what the problem was there. Okay, well, I'll keep an eye on the waiting room anyway, in case anyone else tries to join. So, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name's Anna. I'm a member of the West Cork Creates Committee, and I'm just kind of going to be doing technical support on this talk tonight. And just a couple of bits of housekeeping. We've got everybody's cameras turned off and microphones muted, just so not to have too much background noise. And so if you could just leave them that way, that would be great. You should still be able to hear us and see us. So I'm just going to share my screen. Oh, first of all, I need to get the correct tab. Okay. So I am going to share my screen. And then I'm going to hand over to Alison and Geoff for tonight's In Conversation.
What's the funny noises?
I'm going to mute my microphone.
I see. Okay. Okay, so Geoff, hi.
Hi, Alison. How are you?
This is the conversation of which we have been thinking for so long. I'd like to get the conversation started with quite a personal question. Well, for a photographer anyway. I'd like for you to tell us what kind of a photographer you are. Now, I don't want to leave it at such a simple question. What I'm asking really is, are you the kind of guy who suddenly stops the car and leaps out and grabs his camera and climbs over walls and rushes over fields to catch the right subject at the right moment that might only be perfect for 1 second? Or are you the kind of guy who plans things well in advance, maybe use a studio, maybe make sure that the light is correct and that you've got the right subjects? You know, how do you work, really? That's the question.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Thank you, Anna, for having me on as the prototype for the conversation piece in West Cork Creates. It's a pleasure to be here. And welcome everyone else as well who's watching. What kind of photographer am I? You can see from the 4 images that are on the screen there now. There's one which is a seascape, and 3 which are still lives. I am the kind of photographer that will stop the car, jump out and take the photograph. And sometimes to the frustration of my wife, but sometimes she's very patient as well. And she's a great support in my photography. So it's a mix. There are spontaneous moments where you see something and the camera is handy and I know the workings of the camera. I can turn it on and I can take the shot and get a pretty decent shot. I do like working in the studio with still life, the fish on the fork with the 2 tomatoes and the lettuce. They are set up in the studio, natural light, and I just thought that would be a good subject for harvest, just harvesting the fresh produce from the garden and from the sea. So yeah. I do everything. I have lots of interests, lots of curiosity about things.
And do you always work digitally, or do you sometimes use film? I mean,
no, I use film. For the still life shots, I use a medium format camera that gives me a very large negative. And then I scan that in, get a very big file. I can make a very good sharp print from that. Sometimes I'll use a digital as well because I want to see it instantly rather than waiting for the film to be processed.
Yeah, of course, that's always a bit of a frustration, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's fun as well being in the dark room and watching as the image emerges out of the chemical.
It is. It's magic. I remember the first time I did that in Kinsale, and it was like being a child, full of wonder. It was magic.
Yeah, it really is, and you can affect the photograph so much by leaving it a little bit longer, or leaving it out all the contrast and everything like that.
Yeah, dodging and burning. Those are the techniques I use in Lightroom, in the software, and I really enjoy using the software to produce not just an image that's straight out of the camera, but to put my own stamp on it and to make it feel the way I almost felt at the time of taking the photograph, to try and get that emotion back into an image.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that from the work that you do.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff and I met actually as a result of a project that he's working on now called Creative Spaces. Is that right?
It is, yeah, Creative Spaces.
Where he's photographing artists and craftspeople in the space that they work in. So he's actually, going to the workshop, going to the studio, going to, sometimes it's an outdoor space as well, just to see where the creativity happens. Tell me, is it hard to get artists to agree to something like this? Because it's we're quite a kind of shy, introverted lot at heart. And I just wondered, how do you manage to do that and not be too intrusive and, sort of impinge on what they're doing and their creative energy, if you like? How does that work?
I'm working in collaboration with Melanie Black. The 2 of us are traveling around to the various artists. We've done 15 so far, and we were hoping to do another 15 for this year and show them in Blue House Gallery and also in the other O'Driscoll building alongside the West Cork Creates, but that didn't happen this year. I asked Melanie to join me so that we could, I know we see things differently, and she would see things that I would miss, and Mel would maybe not quite see quite the same thing that I see. And so the collaboration between the 2 of us, I knew I'd work well with Melanie. She's very easy to get on with. She has good ideas, good opinions, and we spark off of each other, and we give each other enormous encouragement by doing this. The artists themselves, I really have to say thank you once again to them all, because they were open, they were very giving of their time, and of themselves. And we asked them beforehand in in a phone call before we arrived. We didn't just arrive out of the blue. We'd made an appointment to call and see them. And we said, listen, you're in your natural habitat. That's what we want to photograph you as a craftsperson or as an artist. And don't dress up for us. Don't do anything you wouldn't do. Just pretend it's another day in the studio, and we will try and be as unobtrusive as possible, and we will just catch the atmosphere that you have created in your particular space. And the spaces varied so enormously. Some were small, some were luxurious, some were you could see that work was going on in that space, and it was a privilege to be allowed into this such intimate space where ideas, abstract ideas in the head, are formed, and then they're translated into something substantial that can go on a wall, or it can go on a windowsill, or it can go as a piece of furniture in a room somewhere. So
I was wondering, sorry to interrupt you there, I was just wondering, when you went to these places, did you know what you were looking for? I mean, you and Mel must have had many conversations before you actually embarked on this. Did you know what you were looking for, or did you just go with an open mind? You must have had some idea of what you were looking for.
We were looking for, we needed a portrait of each artist, which we knew we were going to translate into a black and white image. So we had the choice of an artist at work, a craftsperson at work, a craftsperson looking straight to camera. The tools of the trade seemed to be an obvious picture to have, and then some of the work in its final state, and some work that was in progress at the time. So we knew those rough boundaries that we wanted, those kind of outlines, but we did let the moment surprise us as well. And there was one particular photograph that Mel took of Christine Thery's palette, and it was just beautiful, just purples and yellows in one top left-hand corner. A beautiful, beautiful image that was used for the poster for Creative Spaces. And that was a chance kind of thing, but Mel saw it, I didn't see it at all. So that was another bonus for the two of us working together.
And do you think the artists responded to it? Do you think the artists were quietly pleased about it? Do you think, it sort of gave them a view of what other people see of them and of their work? It's kind of interesting to see how people see you from the outside, I suppose, and especially from a photographer's point of view.
Yeah. When the show was on in the Blue House Gallery, we had the whole gallery, and we had about 75 pictures up on the wall alongside a piece of work that we had actually photographed. So that was alongside the pictures on the wall. And it was very well attended, and everyone said that the feedback was very encouraging, and everyone said it is so great to see an image of this actual piece in the studio from where it came. Yeah. I never realized that, say, Leda May worked in this particular kind of space, that John Doherty had a lovely Persian carpet in his studio. And people were absolutely fascinated because they have a picture on the wall by Christine Thery, say, and oh, this is where it came from. I've never visited. It's so wonderful to have that insight. And that's why the artists themselves and the craftspeople were so generous in allowing us into that space.
Well, I think it adds something, doesn't it? I mean, everybody talks about how it's really important there's a story behind things, that it's the story that kind of hooks the interest for potential customers and even people just viewing an exhibition. That you have to tell the story, and it's always quite difficult to think what that story should be, and sometimes it seems a bit phony and a bit repeated. Yeah. But when you've actually got that kind of an insight, literally insight, into a piece being made, I mean, I think you can't beat that. I know
Yeah.
people get excited sometimes when they come to my workshop and they look at things that I made 20 years ago, things that I've discarded and stuck in a corner, and they're like, wow, I really like that. But you know, that's
I know.
you know,
It's
and you can't see it through the eyes of somebody who's seeing it first, because you're so used to it yourself, and because you've moved on from that and you're making something different, so you can't look at it with the same eyes.
Yeah, and I mean, we came into the studios with fresh eyes, and we were open to ideas, which just generated themselves because each space was so different. Damaris Lysett she doesn't have a studio, she paints outside. And so we trekked through beautiful countryside to the spot where she was actually painting this particular picture. And
she's usually alone, presumably, just the bird, the cows. She's usually completely alone when she's doing that.
Yeah, well, she has a dog with her, and the dog was very friendly, didn't go for our ankles or anything like that. He was very nice. And it was just wonderful. We probably spent too long with Damaris, because we also had to photograph Keith Payne and yourself on the same day. We set us that challenge of doing 3, and that's why we turned up late for yourself, I'm afraid. But it was good. And doing 3 in a row, it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I was so interested in what they did. You could see why they did it, because there was a continuity between all the work that people make. There's a progression. I don't know if you can see it in my photographs. There's 3 of them there that I chose. There's a kind of progression there. No, it was so interesting. It was lovely. It's a nice idea. There's a lot more people to do, and hopefully Mel and I will be able to tour around next year if the restrictions allow us to.
Yeah, so it's an ongoing project. That's
it's a long time project, and hopefully in 2 years or 3 years there'll be a book at the end of it. Yeah. So buy the book.
As you know, I had a similar experience when I was writing West Cork Inspires, which is back in 2012 now. I had to visit 20 artists and craftspeople in the area, and sat down, had a cup of tea with them at the table, you know, and I found out so much about, these are people that I knew, but you know, I had never asked them those questions. So it was really interesting to find out why they came to West Cork, when they came to West Cork, you know, what the backstory was. It's fascinating. But one thing that always impressed me was the kind of beautiful work that was being produced in the smallest, meanest spaces, if you like. Do you know, like some people work in the corner of a room, and yet they produce the most fantastic work.
I know.
I was just time and time again, I imagine that every artist had like a separate building where they would have their easels and all their paints and everything, but very often people were working in really small, cramped conditions with very, very basic tools, and yet they were producing the most outstanding works of art and pieces of art that, you know, you could imagine, highly polished. They look like that comes from you know, some massive workshop that had loads of equipment and that sort of thing. So, you know, I think that's one of the things that impressed me the most, was that that people are able to make something so beautiful from you know.
They are. It's that focus of attention that they bring, and it's the drive. The other thing that I came away from that experience was all 15 of those people that we photographed, they all had this intense drive to create things. So and always, while they're creating one thing, that might lead on to the next painting or the next piece of furniture or the next technique in making a vase. And it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Some were small spaces, as I said, very cramped, and we just about barely fit into one of the studios with the 2 of us in there, because it was set up just for the one person. Very private place, but it was lovely. And
everything's got to be close to hand, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And they're surrounded by books and work that might have a crack in it. And it was lovely. It was really nice. But that's what impressed me the most, this drive, this constant seeking to express something, and either in a painting or whatever medium they're using, it was a constant energy that all these people had, and you get a buzz off of that. You see that.
You certainly do, and also you discover that these people are hidden down boreens,
Yeah,
tiny little back roads that nobody will ever find them.
I know.
And you know, it sort of worried me at the time that, you know, people won't be dropping in to have a look at their studio. People, you know, people will have to make a tremendous effort to find them.
They will.
They're so hidden, and they're so in the back roads and down boreens. And I just wonder, how do they sell their work? How do people find them? You know, part of the reason that I wanted to write the book was I wanted to present this. I wanted this to be something that people could see and people could know about, because it's very hard to make a living as an artist, and when you live somewhere so remote, you know, you haven't got the advantages of shop windows or
I know.
people wandering past or something like that. And I suppose to some extent people like that, but it only goes so far. You know, I've heard people complaining bitterly about muddy potholed tracks to people's studios, and, you know, maybe having to catch a ferry to go over there and this sort of thing. So
we did that.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be pretty intrepid and pretty determined.
Both of those things, yeah. Yeah, but I think that's also why West Cork Creates, the adventure that is West Cork Creates, is so important. It's on for a month or 6 weeks normally, isn't it? When it's in the O'Driscoll building. I also like to pay tribute to Blue House Gallery I proposed the idea to them, and they said, yeah, go with it. And initially it was supposed to be downstairs, just the downstairs 2 rooms, but we had a good body of work and also a piece from each artist. And so it took over the whole gallery. And again, that ran for 3 weeks. It was quite successful. And fair dues to Blue House for allowing that to show our work, but also to generate interest in other people's works as well.
Right, yeah, it's very important for us to have those spaces.
It's incredibly important. And
the actual exhibition this year in the O'Driscoll building, I'm delighted that the Blue House decided to open this summer.
Yeah.
But I think ourselves going online was quite an innovation, and it's something that I'm glad that we've done. It's something that we've thought about doing before and never got around to it. So to some extent, necessity is the mother of invention, and we have reinvented ourselves as an online website and gallery.
Yeah.
So, you know, it could well be the shape of things to come. We just don't know. We just don't know where this time next year.
I know. I mean, this online presence that we have now needn't necessarily finish when the more traditional West Cork Creates finished after a 6-week run. It could go on till Christmas, maybe even after Christmas. Who knows? You know, and maybe having ever-changing pictures up on the wall as well, just to keep it fresh.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Alison.
Oh, God. We've only got 5 minutes, Geoff.
Oh, okay. I got a page of questions. Here's one. Does inspiration for you come from a piece of wood that you might find or handle? And does from that piece of wood a piece of furniture emerge?
Okay, well, yes, very often. I mean, I often get my inspiration, I think, like in the winter when there's no leaves on the trees, I'm looking around, I'm looking at the negative spaces, I'm looking at the gaps between the branches. Those are the kind of shapes, I obsessively look at those. And I suppose those have sort of got under my skin and into my brain, and they certainly inspire chairs that I make the following season, because, you know, I can't really make any in the winter. My hazel gets cut in December, January. I have to wait for a couple of months for it to season a little bit. So I'm sort of starting making in the spring. But I think I think it's easy to get inspiration like that, but what I have to do is make the chair I have the sticks for. So really, I have to go to my pile of hazel, and that's when I start turning sticks around and looking at them, thinking, oh, that would be a really nice arm, and that would make a nice back post. I'm actually dictated to by my materials. I can only make the chair I have the sticks for. So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
that's where I find it. That's where the inspiration has to come from.
The other question I had for you is, you, like Mel and I did, we collaborated in this this venture together, but you collaborate as well with other artists. And how does that work?
This year I decided I wanted to do something with colour. A few years back I decided that I was a bit tired of just having wooden chairs, and that I would like to have somehow be able to introduce colour. So I'm now collaborating with various different textile designers each year to add colour to the chairs. This year, because of the harvest theme, I was looking for sort of autumnal colours, you know, like pumpkins and squashes, those kind of beautiful autumnal colours that you get from the harvest. And so I worked with Nicola Brown, who does this eco printing. What's so exciting is that every year I can work with a different textile designer, and the chairs will look different. You know, you will be introducing different textures, different colours, and so, you know, it means that you're constantly reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
And that's exciting, and I like the energy. I think that when you work with somebody in collaboration, there's an extra energy there. It's like both of you bring something, but by putting them together, you have a third thing. You have sort of extra inspiration, extra excitement.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, the chairs that we have, or the stools that we have in the bottom left here now, they're beautifully painted, beautifully painted. Would you ever want to sit on those stools? No, they're just too nice.
When I brought them into my house, my husband said, oh, that's good, I'll put my coffee down there now.
Of course he did.
And everybody screamed.
I know. One final question for you. You told me that some of your students, when they come to your courses,
Yeah.
they often get very emotional about the piece that they've finished and made.
Yeah.
Do you know why they do that?
I think making something touches you very deeply. When you've made something, especially if you're somebody who doesn't often make things, it touches you somewhere deep down, and it is an emotional thing. And the words that accompany, I mean, they sometimes have tears in their eyes, and they say to me, I didn't know I could make something.
Yeah.
And they'll say to me, you don't know what this means to me. I didn't know that I could do it, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's something empowering about making something, but there's also something very emotional about being creative. I mean, I can't put my finger on it, but I love it when it happens, and you know, it happens fairly frequently, and I just want to give them a hug. You know?
Yeah, it's a kind of calm, isn't it? I mean, there's a kind of of it. You're concentrating on it. It's like I have a portrait there of Jim Turner, with the shaft of light just catching him, and you can see the intent on his face. It's complete immersion in something. And for someone who maybe lives in a city or has no access to the tools or anything like that,
yes,
then yeah, that's Jim Turner in his studio. And I'm grateful to Mel, who brought Jim and his wheel forward so that the shaft of light was catching him, and I'm really happy with that shot. Really happy with it.
And you can see from that picture, you can almost see the kind of circle that goes from his brain and his eyes into his hands and back into his brain and his eyes. It's like seeing it and feeling it both at the same time. You know?
Yeah.
So it's you know, it's an incredibly intensely physical thing. What you can't see is what's coming from inside of him, of course.
I know, yeah. And you've only got an inkling of the concentration that's going on. And there's a picture of Brian Lawler. So that was one of the portraits that we used for Creative Spaces, only it was in black and white, but I thought I'd show it in colour for this evening anyway, because I like the colours as well. But
makers get to a point where their hands actually seem to have a life of their own. There are times when I'm working and I feel like my hands know what they're doing, and I'm not even necessarily thinking about it. become sort of memory of the muscles in my hands, and they just
Yeah.
do it, you know.
It's a different thing in my photography, because I am training my eye all the time, and I work intuitively in Photoshop and in Lightroom, which is the catalog system that Adobe has, and I do work intuitively. I could not reproduce a second time what I had done the first time.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. It will turn out differently, because the controls and the sliders that are at your disposal, and the way you can control the light. You can emphasize the brightness in one area one time, and you can emphasize the darkness in another area another time, and it changes the picture entirely.
It's a hand though, isn't it? It's still your hand responding to your eye. And
Yeah, this is my tool. This is this is a tablet pen, a Wacom tablet pen, and that's my tool. And it's beautiful. It's much better to use that than it is a mouse. And
well, unfortunately, Geoff,
okay,
just as we're really getting going, I think it's time for us to wind up.
Okay, okay. It's been fun.
Anna, am I right? It looks to me
Yes, you're right. I was just waiting for a suitable moment to interject and to just see if there was any sort of final question that you'd like to ask Geoff before we wrap this up.
Well, I think he's answered that question. The final question I was going to ask him was, have you ever taken a picture that you consider perfect as you could hope for? And I think we've seen Jim Turner.
Okay.
Geoff, is there anything you'd like to add to that, Geoff?
There isn't really.
Okay, that's fine.
There is one other photograph. Do we have time to show it?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, which one?
It's number 10.
Could you just tell me which one that is?
It's the Daly family.
Oh, the family. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just need to share the screen. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So this was, I was asked to call around for an informal family photograph session.
Wow.
And they didn't want the formal studio picture. But I love this picture, because Nessa, whose head is resting on Kieran's shoulder, and she's looking straight at me with an enigmatic look in her eye, and little Mirren on the other side of Kieran has that bright robin's eye, the brightness of the eye that a robin has. And I didn't want Kieran looking at me. I didn't pose him, but he did look away for a second. And that's when I took the shot. And I knew that as I took the shot that was going to be a cracker. It prints up beautifully. It's lovely. I just love that shot.
It is. It's a beauty.
Yeah. It really is. Okay, well, I think we should probably leave it there. Thank you both very much for participating in this first In Conversation session. Hopefully we'll have lots more of the West Cork Creates artists volunteering to take part in this now that they've seen yours. And they've seen that it's not too scary.
It's not as terrifying as it.
Good.
Once you get into it.
And hopefully everything went smoothly on the technical side of things. I guess we'll find out afterwards if people were able to join or not. But thank you to everyone who did join. We really appreciate you making the effort to be here. And this session has been recorded, so we will be sharing it on our Facebook. And if you missed it, then you could be watching it now at your leisure. So I think we'll just leave it there then. So thanks a lot, Alison and Geoff, and everybody for joining us. And good evening.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Take care. Bye-bye.